The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, good morning everybody and welcome to today's webinar. The webinar title for today is Introduction to ArcGIS Earth. I appreciate you taking time to join me today. Looks like we've still got quite a few people joining the call, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I like to respect everybody's time, so and we try to keep these as short as possible just to respect everybody's time. So I appreciate you joining me today. We'll go ahead and get started. All right, just a few housekeeping items here as we're getting started. First and foremost, in terms of webinar duration, we do try to keep these fairly short, we try to compress everything down into a fairly short period of time, but still give you a good overview of different topics. So I try to limit these to about 30 minutes. Today maybe go a little bit longer, just kind of depending on how quickly we go through this, but I'm planning on probably going 30 to 45 minutes today. Won't go any longer than that for sure though. There is a handout that comes with today's webinar. If you will go to your handout section of GoToWebinar, should be on the right-hand side. There should be a handout section. The lecture notes that I'll be going through today should be available to you in a PDF format, and you can download those as you need. And feel free to distribute those as well to anybody that may not have made the webinar that would like to see the information. I am recording the webinar as well, so and we're going to put the recording of the webinar up on our blog later this afternoon or this morning sometime, along with the lecture notes, the handouts as well. So in terms of audio, if you experience some sort of problem with audio as we're going through the webinar, typically what will resolve that is if you'll just disconnect and then reconnect. That tends to usually to resolve whatever problem you have with audio. But rather than sending me a message on chat, just try to disconnect and then reconnect if you're having any problems with audio. In terms of questions, I normally do a question and answer session after the presentation, and I usually contain that within about a 15-minute time span. However, today we have about 900 people that are registered for today's webinar, so there's a lot of people on the call. So what I'm going to have you do, rather than doing a live Q&A session today, is if you have any questions as we're going through the materials, what I'd like you to do is just go ahead and submit that question on the chat window, using the chat window. And what I'm going to do is just after the webinar is over, so I'm going to go through all the questions and answer the question. What I'll do is put together a PDF document with all the questions and answers. I think there's just going to be too many people to try to do a live interactive Q&A. So what we'll do is just, if you have questions, submit those in the chat window, and then I will create a PDF file after the webinar is over with all the Q&As, and we'll put that on the blog as well. All right, mainly just because we have too many people. Normally I'll do about a 15-minute Q&A session, but I think it's going to be a little overwhelming to try to do that today. All right, just to kind of give you an overview of what we'll talk about in today's webinar. We've got a lot of material that we need to get through here pretty quickly, and we'll hit each of these topics pretty quickly. ArcGIS Earth is really a pretty easy product to learn how to use. If you've ever used Google Earth, it's going to be a very similar format and interface for you. So we'll look at the ArcGIS Earth interface. We'll also look at how you navigate in ArcGIS Earth. We'll take a look at some of the supported GIS data formats. Take a look at base maps and the terrain layer, show you how to add layers. Also show you how to sketch and label features inside of ArcGIS Earth. Other things that you can do include measuring, so you can measure points, lines, polygons, circles, things of that sort. You can share your work. Okay, you can email out screenshots. You can create not PDF files, but image files, and there's different ways that you can share your work. There's also search functionality, so it allows you to search for specific addresses, specific cities, counties, states. There's lots of different ways that you can search for data using the search interface. And then we'll also look at some of the basic settings that you can define in ArcGIS Earth, and then towards the end we'll also take a look at some of the point-based service access that you can use, which is pretty interesting. It basically allows you to click the ArcGIS Earth interface and then call specific web services to be able to return data. And then finally, we'll kind of look at what's coming in future releases. Again, this is the first release of ArcGIS Earth, so it's version 1.0. So there's a lot of functionality that's not built into this yet that is going to be built into future versions. So we'll kind of take a look at kind of what's coming in the future as well. Just a little bit of information about me. My name is Eric Pimpler. I'm the owner of Geospatial Training Services. I've been doing GIS for roughly 25 years at this point, most of that time with Esri products. I spend most of my time with ArcGIS Desktop, do a lot of work with Python, also do a lot of work with ArcGIS Server and the JavaScript API. So I have several books out there that I've written, most of them on Python. The first 3 books that you see down at the bottom deal with using Python and ArcGIS Desktop. But like I said, I also do a lot of work with ArcGIS Server and JavaScript as well. All right, so today's webinar obviously is on ArcGIS Earth, but we also have some other webinars coming up soon. If you go to our webpage at geospatialtraining.com and click the webinars link at the top, that should present you with a little drop-down list of the upcoming webinars that we have that you may be interested in signing up for. Later this month, we have an Introduction to QGIS webinar on the 29th, and then next month we'll be doing Introduction to App Studio to show you how to build out some mobile and web applications using App Studio. So if you are interested in those, just go to the webinars link on our main webpage, and you can sign up from there. All right, so let's take a look at some of the basics of ArcGIS Earth. Basically, ArcGIS Earth is an interactive 3D globe viewer that allows you to do data exploration and visualization. It's very similar to Google Earth in terms of how it looks, how you interact with the interface. All right, so if you've ever used Google Earth, which most of us have, you're going to find it to be a very familiar tool. And that's for a reason. You know, I think that ArcGIS Earth really was built as kind of a replacement for Google Earth. And so you're going to see a lot of similarities. Now, ArcGIS Earth at this point is not going to be able to do all the things that can be done in Google Earth. I think that will change over time. I think they're going to, build out functionality over time that's going to fully replicate what Google Earth can do, plus some additional things as well. I think as you'll see as we go through today's webinar, there are a lot of things that you can do in ArcGIS Earth that you can't do in Google Earth as well. So it does support both 2D and 3D mapping. In terms of the data formats that it supports, data format is formats included for KML files, for shape files, for ArcGIS Server, for ArcGIS Online. All right, so feature layers, map services, image services, 3D object scene layers. Lots of different data formats that are supported by ArcGIS Earth. And if you've ever used Google Earth, you know that it's basically limited to just working with KML files. You can import shape files, but everything works around the use of KML and KMZ files. So one of the nice benefits of ArcGIS Earth is that it has the capability of using KML files, but also has the ability to use GIS data formats that you're familiar with as well. There are multiple base maps that you can use as well. All right, so you're not limited to just aerial imagery, right? We can change to lots of different base maps, and these base maps are coming by default from ArcGIS Online. All right, so we have things like topo maps and street maps and open source street maps. There's lots of different base maps that you can use, and then you can also integrate that with a terrain layer so that you can get a 3D visualization of your base maps as well. So there's lots of different base maps that you can use, plus a terrain layer. It supports both Web Mercator and WGIS84. Other things you can do, you can sketch and annotate features, we can draw and measure, we can share our creations, and we can search for data. Just some of the system requirements here. I'm not going to go through this in any detail, but I've provided a link here if you're interested in getting more details on the system requirements. This is provided. So there's a link here, and again, if you didn't catch this earlier, there's a handout in your handout section that contains all the lecture notes that I'm going through today. And so if you want to learn more about the system requirements, you can just take that and just copy and paste the link here to get more information on that. All right, so in terms of the interface itself, and now here I'm going to start bouncing back and forth between lecture and the actual software, so I can kind of give you demonstrations as we go along here. But again, this is kind of built as a Google Earth alternative. It looks very similar to Google Earth if you've ever used it. The way that you interact with the software is very similar in terms of how you zoom in, how you zoom out, how you pan, how you rotate the view. All the things that you can do in Google Earth in terms of navigation can also be done in ArcGIS Earth as well. In terms of the interface itself, there's a primary toolbar that you see running across the top here. These are the primary tools that you're going to use. This is where you add data. This is where you visualize what layers are part of your view. You can sketch, you can measure, you can email, you can print, and so this is the primary toolbar. Then of course we have the 2D or the 3D display. It's going to be 3D by default, but that can be changed to 2D as well. When you first start up ArcGIS Earth, it does require you to log in, right? So you can see that I'm logged in here under my username. The login name is going to be your ArcGIS Online account, right? So whatever account you use to log into ArcGIS Online, that's the same account that you're going to use to log into ArcGIS Earth. Other things that we have here include a search window, right? You can search for in a lot of different ways, right? We can enter addresses, you can enter place names, you can enter coordinates if you have the coordinates, postal codes, lots of different ways that you can search, which again replicates what you would get with Google Earth as well. In terms of navigation, there's two primary navigation tools that are provided through the interface. One is the home button. The little home button, as you start working with the display, as you start zooming in, zooming out, panning, if you ever want to return to the default extent, all you have to do is just click this home button. It'll take you back to wherever you first began. And then we have the little orientation arrow. This is your orientation, all right? So because you can change the orientation of the globe, if you ever want to make sure if you ever want to go back to where north is just straight up, you just click the little orientation button here. All right, so in terms of navigation, lots of different options for navigation, and these are very similar to Google Earth. We can use the interface to navigate. Most people are going to use your mouse to navigate, and I'll show you a lot of different ways that you can use to navigate in ArcGIS Earth with your mouse. All right, we can use the left mouse key, we can use the scroll wheel, we can rotate with the right mouse key, a lot of different things you can do there. You can also use your keyboard just like you can in Google Earth, so you can use the keys on your keyboard. We have the arrow keys, the up, the down, the left, the right arrow keys. Those are used to pan the display. And then you can also use your page up and page down. One very nice piece of functionality that ArcGIS Earth also provides is the ability to use touch. So if you have a touch screen, you can use your fingers to basically touch your way to zoom in, zoom out, to pan using your fingers as opposed to the mouse or the keyboard or the interface. All right, so at this point I'm going to break out just a little bit and just give you a quick demo here of the ArcGIS Earth functionality, just some of the basic functionality. Again, this is your basic toolbar. Starting on the left-hand side here, this is just essentially your table of contents, which shows you the data that you have that you've added to ArcGIS Earth. And you can turn that on and off just by clicking the table of contents button. I'm going to go over these in more detail later, but right now I'm just kind of showing you the basics. This is the Add Data button, and we'll go through that in more detail later, but it allows you to add data from file sources or from ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Server. You can even copy and paste a URL if you have the URL to an ArcGIS Server instance. The drawing tool, this allows you to sketch and annotate whatever you've sketched. The measure tool just allows you to measure in different ways, points, lines, polygons, circles. If you want to save an image, right, this allows you to save out an image to, for an example, a JPEG file or a PNG file. You can also email, so if you have Outlook on your computer, this will allow you to email out a screenshot of what you're seeing as an attachment. Obviously the print functionality, and then the settings. And then on the far right-hand side, we have the base maps. All right, so this is what allows you to switch out the base maps. And it's pulling these from ArcGIS Online. The default, what you're going to get by default is the imagery, but you can certainly change that. For some reason, it's a little slow loading here, but all these base maps are coming from ArcGIS Online, and you get a default set of base maps as well. You can add to these base maps if you need to do that in addition to what you see here. You'll also notice down here at the bottom is the little checkbox for the terrain. This is what allows you to turn on the 3D visualization of the terrain so that you can see elevation. Not sure why these aren't coming on right now, but anyway, and you can also close the toolbar, so if you want to free up some real estate there for your visualizations, you can hide and show. Then there's a search window here that allows you different ways to search, and of course we have our navigation buttons here, right? So if we want to return to the home, we just click the home button. You can All right, lots of different ways you can twist things, and if you want to just reset things, you can just go back to the reset bar. As I said before, when you log into ArcGIS Earth, it is asking for your ArcGIS Online account, and so you'll need to make sure you have an ArcGIS Online account in order to use that. You can also go full screen, all right? So if you want to go full screen, you can click the full screen button, and it'll take you into a full screen mode. Now, in terms of navigation, as I said before, there are a lot of different ways that you can navigate the display. Most of the time, you're using your mouse, so everybody's going to be pretty much familiar with that. But if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can use the scroll wheel to zoom in and zoom out, which is what I'm doing here. Just provides you a way of rapidly zooming in and zooming out. To pan, you just use your left button, and you can pick it up and drag it, right? So it's the same type of functionality that you would get with ArcGIS Earth in terms of panning. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Now you can also tilt the display. So if you hold down your right mouse key, you can tilt the display. It's kind of hard to see anything here. Let's go to somewhere that has a little bit more elevation. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Now I'm going to use again my right mouse key to kind of tilt the display once I get in a little closer here. All right, so I've got the terrain layer turned on here, and now if I just kind of tilt the display with and all I'm doing here is just holding down my right mouse button, and you can start to see the terrain. Again, very similar to what you would get in Google Earth. Now you can also use your fingers, as I said before, if you have a touchscreen enabled interface, and I'm going to do that now. So what I'm doing now is just using my fingers to zoom in and zoom out on top of the display. So that's one really nice thing that that you get with ArcGIS Earth, is the ability to use your touch gesture types of things that you would expect with mobile types of applications can also be done with ArcGIS Earth. So I'm just using my fingers here to zoom in and zoom out, to pan, do things of that sort. All right, so again, very similar to what you'd find with ArcGIS Earth or with Google Earth. All right, so in terms of the supported GIS data formats, the supported formats include KML, and this includes both KML and KMZ files. For those of you who are not familiar with Google Earth file formats, a KMZ file is essentially just a compressed version of a KML file. KML files tend to get very large very quickly. It uses a text-based XML language to describe the geographic features. And so these text files get really large really fast. And so one of the ways of dealing with that is to create a KMZ file, which is basically a compressed version of KML. In terms of KML support, it supports version 2.2, including network links, which is very important. Network links, for those of you who are not familiar with that, in Google Earth, network links is what gives you the ability to create real-time types of applications. So if you have data that's changing frequently in Google Earth, the way that real-time data is supported is through something called network links. That's what gives Google Earth the ability to do real-time types of applications. That is supported in ArcGIS Earth as well. ArcGIS Earth also includes support for shapefiles, very common format, obviously, and then also ArcGIS Server and ArcGIS Online services. All right, so it has an integrated dialog that allows you to connect to ArcGIS Online, as well as enter URLs for ArcGIS Server instances. And we'll show you an example of that here in just a few minutes. In terms of the base maps and the terrain, as we were looking at before, there's a little base maps button that you can click, and it drops down just a little base map gallery. And these are the default base maps that are provided by ArcGIS Online. You can use any of these base maps, right? So you're not limited to just using imagery, right? If you want to add a topographic base map in a 3D view, you can do that. And so there's a whole list of base maps that you can use. Topographic data, obviously imagery, streets. There's some canvas, including dark and light canvases. You can see those here. Also includes an OpenStreetMap base map that you can use, and a few others as well. And also keep in mind, there's a little checkbox here at the bottom for the terrain, right? So this is the terrain layer that you can turn on and off. By default, it's turned on, and that's what gives you the ability to visualize data in 3 dimensions. If you want to go to a 2D view, you can just click this off, and then you get more of a 2D view instead of a 3D view. So let's see, I'm going to go back and see if this works at this point. For some reason it wasn't working earlier, and I don't know why it's not, but for some reason it's kind of spinning. Let me try starting it over real quick. And as I said before, when you first log in, or when you first start up ArcGIS Earth, it does ask you for your login, for your ArcGIS online login. And we'll see if we get a connection here. There we go. All right, so here's, when I click the base maps, here's what I get. You know, I get this default set of base maps. And if you want to change it, obviously all you have to do is just click whatever base map you want to change that to, and we get a new base map. So if I zoom in, let's just zoom into Mount Hood here. Now you can tilt the display with these base maps as well. So I'm going to use the tilt functionality. Again, just using my right mouse key to kind of tilt the display a little bit. And so you can see any of these base maps in 3D, right? You're not just limited to the imagery. Now, if you don't want to see something in 3D, right, you can just turn that off, right? If you turn off the terrain layer, and at this point, I'm visualizing the data in more of a two-dimensional display. All right, if I turn it back on, then it adds the third dimension there. Okay. All right, so in terms of adding layers, different ways that we can add layers. When you click the Add Layer button, it's just a little plus button here on your primary toolbar. What that will do is display a dialog similar to what you see on the screenshot here that allows you to enter or find data in different ways, right? We have a connection to ArcGIS Online. We have file-based sources, including KML, KMZ, and shapefiles. And then we also have URL-based services. So if you have an ArcGIS server instance and you want to connect to that, you can just enter a URL. And I'll show you an example of how we do that. All right, so going back then to ArcGIS Earth, we'll just turn off our base map layer here. And so I'll click the Add Data button. And again, there are different ways that you can add data. We'll show you the file-based ways that you can add data first. So if I just click the Add Files link here and then click Select Files, what I can do here is add file-based GIS data sets. And basically, at this point, we're limited to KML, KMZ, and shapefile formats. All right, so if I want to, for instance, add a shapefile, here's a shapefile that I have. This is, I believe this is census blocks or census tracts for Manhattan. All right, and there's my shapefile that's been added. Now, if I go back to the table of contents, you'll see that shapefile that's been added. If I right-click on that, I can go to Properties, and I can change various properties here, right? So I'm getting a default color here, but you can change that, right? If you want a different color, if you want to set a transparency, you can set the opacity value. Different things that we can add here in terms of weight and color and fill and all that good stuff. Also, a summary, it'll tell you the name, what the data source is, what the coordinate system is. All that good information. All right, so it's very easy to add things like shapefiles. We can also add KML and KMZ files, so I'm going to select the Select Files button again. Here I will add, let's just add San Antonio Half Marathon. So this is a KMZ file. Again, it supports both KML and KMZ. A KMZ is just a compressed version of a KML file. All right, so this is just a KML file that we've added. All right. Now, you'll notice if you add a KML or a KMZ file, if you are in the table of contents and you right-click and go to Properties, nothing happens, right? So I'm right-clicking here, going to Properties, and nothing happens. They just haven't implemented anything for that functionality yet, right? So you don't have the ability to go in and change the symbology for whatever KML file you've added. You can do that with shapefiles, right? If I right-click on a shapefile, I can open up the Properties dialog box. At this point, you can't do that yet with KML files. All right, if I just right-click and go to Properties, nothing happens. So I just want to just kind of show you that, just kind of point that out for you. Other things that we can do in terms of adding files, you can enter a URL, and this is useful if you are adding data that's coming from an ArcGIS server instance. So I'm going to pull up an instance of ArcGIS server here. Here is an instance of ArcGIS server. This is coming from the USGS. They have an ArcGIS server instance that will allow you to display wildfire data. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to copy and paste the URL out of the ArcGIS server services directory, and I'll paste it here, and we'll call it, we'll give it a name. Let's call it wildfire data from USGS. Hit OK. All right, and that's pulling data now from the USGS ArcGIS server instance. So these little blue triangular, or I'm sorry, green triangle points that you see here, that's data that's being pulled from an ArcGIS server instance that's coming from the USGS. And I'll also point out this data is updated fairly often, right? And so this is one of those data sets that it's pulling live data. So if you come in here and pull this data set in tomorrow, it may look different than what you see today. So that is a map service that's being pulled in from ArcGIS server. Now you can also add ArcGIS online data sources. And so this is going to look very similar to if you were using ArcGIS Online, right? We can go to ArcGIS Online and we can select all, or my content, or my groups, or my organization. I'll just go to all here, and then you can also do a search. So if I want to do a search for parcels, right, it will bring up whatever search results are under that particular term that you've searched for, right? And so then at that point, and I have no idea if this is going to work or not, but I'm going to try adding this service. There we go. All right, and you see it's also added this to the table of contents. So here comes the data. All right, so this is a data set that's being pulled from ArcGIS Online. All right, so the three different ways that we can add data again, you can add data from ArcGIS Online, you can add data from an ArcGIS server instance, or you can do a file-based add, and that would be either KML, KMZ, or shapefiles. All right, you can also sketch and label your features. This allows you to create points, lines, polygons, and then you can also label these as well. As you'll notice from the screenshot here, we just click the little pencil icon, and then we can create our points, our lines, our polygons. We can symbolize them, and then we can label them as well. And you can save them, right? And so as you initially add one of these sketches, nothing is saved, but when you click the little save button here, what it will do is save it to the table of contents. However, it's not saving the data to a file, all right? So all you're doing here when you click the save button is it's saving it back to the table of contents. It's not saving it to a file, and right now, at least from what I can tell, it does not allow you to save these sketches out anywhere. And I suspect that's coming in future releases though. So let's break out of here, show you a quick example. Let's just clear out some of this. All right, so if we want to add a sketch, we just click the little pencil icon, a little drawing icon. All right, so if I want to add a point, a line, a polygon, I can do that. So if I want to add a point, we'll just change the icon here. All right, so it allows you to change the icon, you can change the colors, you can change the size. You can also label the features, right? So, and then if you want to save it, right, we click the little save button, that saves it. And under My Drawings, you should see whatever you've saved. Now, I don't see any way of saving this out to a file, right? So if I right-click, the only thing I get here is to remove. I suspect they're going to add to that at some point that will allow you to actually save that out somewhere. Same type functionality if you want to add polygons, right? We just start drawing in a polygon. Allows you to save it. Now, you can also discard things as well. So if you hit the clear button, that's going to discard it. All right, so pretty easy to sketch features. We can also measure features. So you can use the measure tool, and this allows you to measure points, lines, polygons, circles. You can also change the units of measure. All right, so you're going to get a default unit of measurement, but you can certainly change that as well. We can measure polygons and circles, and that'll give us the perimeter and the area. We can also measure the length of a line or a path. For the point measurement, what you're getting is going to be the longitude, latitude of a point. So if I break out of here, go back to ArcGIS Earth, let's close that and click the measure tool. All right, by default, you can see that you're going to get the point tool. As I'm moving this little guy around, my cursor around, it's just updating my coordinates there. line, we can measure linear features. All right, so I'm going to change that to miles. And basically you're just drawing in. And this first one is just point A to point B. So in this first one is a line so basically 2 points. If you want to measure a path just allows you to enter 2 or more points. All right. And again, it's keeping track of your measurements. You double click when you're done and you get the measurement here. You can change that. Same thing with circle, right? You can measure a circle and you can also measure polygons. Okay, and that gives you both the perimeter and the area. All right. In terms of sharing your work, there's a couple things you can do here. There's an email button in the center. This allows you to take a screenshot of your current view and automatically send that screenshot as an email attachment. Now the email attachment is going to be basically just a screenshot, right? So it's going to be an image file of some type. When the end user receives your email, they're going to be able to visualize what you have sent them, but they're not going to be able to interact with the data in any way. You can also save the view as an image, right? So if you click the Save Image button, that allows you to export your view out to either a JPEG, a PNG, or a TIFF file. And then finally, there's a print button. This just allows you to connect to local or network printers and actually send your view to a printer. Search functionality. The little text box here at the upper right-hand corner of ArcGIS Earth allows you to search for different things. And it's a pretty robust tool. It uses both the Esri World Geocoding Service and the ArcGIS Online GeoSearch Service. So it allows you to search for specific addresses, cities, counties, postal codes, coordinates if you have them, also points of interest and landmarks. All right, so if we go back to ArcGIS Earth, let's just clear this out. All right, so again, you can search for lots of different things. If you have a specific address you want to enter, all right, we can do that. And again, it's using the Esri World Geocoding Service as well as the ArcGIS Online GeoSearch Service. All right, so there's my specific location. Maybe I want to change that to imagery or imagery with labels. All right, so there's my specific address. Now we can also search in lots of different ways, right? If you just have a postal code, you want to go to a specific postal code. I'll also do that. Also allows you to enter coordinates if you have coordinates. And again, very similar to what you would get with Google Earth, the same type of search functionality. So lots of similarities here. You can also search for points of interest. All right, so we saw that earlier. All right, so we want to search for something like Mount St. Helens. All right, so it does have the ability to search for specific landmarks and specific points. And then we have the settings. There's a little settings button here towards the far right-hand side, and it allows you to set various settings. And there are 3 different categories, including general, navigation, and advanced. General allows you to set your default portal URL along with the startup view and a spatial reference. Navigation tab allows you to set the fly to speed, the mouse wheel zoom direction. These just control navigational types of issues, right? How fast or how slow you zoom in and zoom out. How you want to set up your scroll wheel on your mouse, and whether or not you want to activate continuous panning. And then finally on the advanced tab, there's a proxy settings. All right, so on the settings tab, again, by general, it allows you to configure your default portal URL. So if you were using ArcGIS Portal, by default, it's going to point directly to arcgis.com, so ArcGIS Online. But if you have your own portal, this is where you configure that URL to point to your portal. Here's your workspace directory, how you want to define the startup view, what spatial reference you want to use, whether you want to apply an atmospheric effect or not. And basically, that just allows you to add clouds and things of that sort. Navigation, right? How fast or how slow do you want to be able to zoom in and zoom out? How fast do you want to be able to fly to something? All right, so if you want to bump that up, that just allows you to fly to something faster, right? So once you enter a search term, that will allow you to search allows you to zoom to something more quickly. All right, so that's what controls your fly to speed. And then on advanced, if you need to use a proxy, you can use that as well. By default, it's going to use the internet settings for your proxy information, but you can, if necessary, change that. All right, so getting towards the end here, one other thing I wanted to talk about is something that is called point-based service access. And what this does is it allows you to gather additional information about point locations. So this gives you the ability to integrate things like Google Street View, What3Words, Mapillary. Any point-based service that will return KML information can be used with this point-based service access. So essentially the way that this works is that you click the mouse on any location on the Earth's surface, and then you call one of these services. For example, maybe you want to call Google Street View to determine what that particular location looks like from Google Street View. All right, so any service that supports KML-based data that can be returned will allow you to do this sort of thing. And what it will do is it'll have a pop-up window that shows information about a point location that's returned by that service. The service does need to return KML, and that KML is going to be then displayed in a pop-up window. It is possible that, and there's lots of services out there that don't return KML. If that is the case, and that is the case, with a lot of these services, including Google Street View, it doesn't return KML information. However, there are some kind of workarounds that you can go through to be able to set ArcGIS Earth up to where, even though the service that you're connecting to doesn't return KML data, you can set it up to where it will funnel information through a template and still be able to display that information. All right. So what you do basically is you control right click. So you hold your control key down on your keyboard, and then you right click somewhere on the Earth's surface. And what that does is it takes whatever lat, long, and elevation that you clicked, and it passes that information to the service. All right. So if we were wanting to invoke Google Street View, what we would do is hold our control key down, right click on the view somewhere, and then that information would be sent to Google Street View. Google Street View that would then return information about that location, including what the street looks like. You have to go to arcgisearth.exe.config, and that's found in your documents folder. And basically you just go to the service URL element and add in some information. This is fully described in a blog article from ESRI, and I've provided the link here. You can copy and paste that from the handouts. So this is kind of an idea of what this will do for you. All right, so here we have ArcGIS Earth, and again, we've set ArcGIS Earth up to where what we want to do is we want to be able to have, we want to be able to visualize more information about a point location. So we've set this up to where when you control right click somewhere on the ArcGIS Earth interface, it connects to Google Street View, and then it returns something like this in a pop-up window so that you can see what that location looks like in Google Street View in addition to what it looks like in ArcGIS Earth. So nice little functionality that a lot of people don't know about that gives you the ability to obtain additional information about a location via other services. All right, so in terms of what's coming in future releases, again, this is just version 1.0 of ArcGIS Earth. So it's fairly limited, functionally speaking, at this point. But it is a software product that they're going to be adding a lot of new functionality to over the coming releases. Some of the things that are coming up that we know of for sure in future releases include things like offline use, so the ability to use ArcGIS Earth without an internet connection. All right, so basically what it's going to do is it's going to cache certain information while you have an internet connection, and then when you go out in the field or somewhere where you don't have an internet connection, it will use that cached data to give you the ability to continue to use ArcGIS Earth even though you don't have a connection. Other things include map tours. If you've used Google Earth extensively in the past, you know that there are several different ways that you can create tours in Google Earth. And right now, ArcGIS Earth does not include that capability. However, it looks like it is coming in some future releases. So it allows you to create tours fly-throughs, things of that sort that you can later replay to other people. Time sliders, so if you have time information that's associated with your geographic data, these time sliders will allow you to visualize data over time, so over space and time. And then also support for WMIS as well. And I'm sure there's much more coming down the pike. This is just what I'm aware of at this point in terms of what they're going to be adding in future releases. Some help links here, just to different things like the product page, the help documentation, the Twitter follow if you want to follow Twitter, and there's a nice little slide share set of slides that you can go through here for the link that I provided. Again, if you'll go to your handout section in GoToWebinar, you should find the slide deck for everything that we've discussed today, and so all these links are in there. You can just copy and paste those links once you find them. All right, so that brings us kind of to the end of what I wanted to cover today. Just to give you a little bit more information, if you're interested in getting more information about ArcGIS Earth, we do have half-day classes coming up on this topic. We'll be in Phoenix in May, Denver in June, and then Montana in August. And we'll also be doing 2 live online versions of the class, one on May the 4th and one on June the 1st. You can just go to geospatialtraining.com and you should see a link there on the main webpage for this particular class. We have 7 modules that we're going to cover in this particular course, so we'll go into a lot more detail on everything that we've covered today. Also have a number of exercises that will kind of reinforce all the topics that we cover. Okay, here's the link. If you go to geospatialtraining.com, Introduction to ArcGIS Earth. All right, so as I mentioned before, in terms of Q&A, we had over 800 people sign up for the webinar. So I think, rather than doing a Q&A session, what I'd like to have you do is if you have any questions over anything that we've covered today, just use the chat window to submit your questions. And I'm going to catalog all of those, put them into a Word document, and then answer them. And then I'll save that out as a PDF file, and I'll make it available to everybody on our blog. It probably won't be today, but hopefully sometime later this week, I'll go through all these questions and answer as many as I can. Also, if you have any questions after the webinar, you can contact me directly. My email is eric@geospatialtraining.com. Also on Twitter, you can follow me at GIS Training on Twitter. All right, so I'm going to keep the webinar open for another 10 minutes or so for any questions. If you would, just if you have any questions, go ahead and submit those in the chat window. And then what I'll do again is I'll just compile a document after the webinar is over with all the Q&A, and then we'll send that out on our blog post. So appreciate you joining me today. Appreciate you taking time out of your day, and hopefully you got some more information on how to use ArcGIS Earth. I know it's going to be a very popular product. There's lots of interest in this tool. It does. I think over the long run, it's going to provide a very nice replacement for Google Earth for those people who are looking to move off of Google Earth for various reasons. So anyway, so I appreciate you joining me, and again, I'll leave the webinar open for about another 10 minutes or so. If you have any questions, just submit those. Otherwise, I appreciate you being here, and I will post the recording of the webinar on our blog later today, along with the slide notes as well. So thank you very much for being here.